I spent years invisible in my own family's house. When I finally spoke the truth, their perfect image shattered. Now the sister who once laughed at me stands at my door, begging for forgiveness. They say family is supposed to be your safe place. But what happens when your family becomes your biggest wound? My name is Sutton Hayes. I just turned 18, and this is the story I have never dared to say out loud before. When I was 6, my parents divorced. Before that, life was simple, or at least it seemed that way through a child's eyes. My dad, Caleb Hayes, was my anchor. He was the one who taught me to fish, to ride a bike, to wipe my tears and tell me I was stronger than I knew. He worked hard at his small construction business, and even when money was tight, he always found a way to make me feel like I had everything. My mom, Lorelei, stayed at home, spending her days in PTA meetings and her evenings scrolling through catalogs for things we could never quite afford. Cracks had been forming long before the papers were signed. My parents argued about money constantly. When the economy dipped and my dad's small construction business went under, it was like a final straw snapping. Bankruptcy took the house. Stress took the marriage. Lorelei blamed him, said she could not live tied to a sinking ship. I was too young to understand all the whispered arguments behind closed doors, the tension that made the air heavy even when no words were spoken. But I felt it. When they split, the court awarded 50-50 custody. But because my dad had lost nearly everything, it was Lorelei who kept the better house, the stability. Dad moved into a small apartment, overworked and overwhelmed, but he never missed a weekend with me. He was always there, arms wide open, ready to make up for what the world had taken from both of us. With Mom, it was different. She remarried quickly. Griffin Maddox was wealthy, successful, the opposite of what she had left behind. And he came with his own family, Briar, Delilah, and Kai Maddox. Older, louder, sharper. From day one, it was clear I was the outsider. Their house was big and pristine, full of glass surfaces and polite smiles that never reached the eyes. From the outside, we looked like the perfect blended family. But inside, I was just a ghost haunting someone else's home. Briar was the worst. With a smile as sharp as broken glass, she made it her mission to remind me every day that I did not belong. She would mock the way I spoke, snatch clothes from my closet, borrow things that I never got back. And my mom, she turned a blind eye. Kids will be kids, she said. Like that explained everything. Holidays hurt the most. Briar, Delilah, and Kai would get expensive gifts. Everything from brand new phones to trips to Disney, shiny bikes, tablets, designer clothes. I would get socks or a sweater 2 sizes too big. Sometimes, if I was lucky, a used book that still had the price tag from the thrift store. At Christmas, they would sit around the tree, unwrapping mountains of presents, while I sat quietly, pretending not to notice that my pile was barely more than a polite gesture. On birthdays, there were cakes with tears and candles and balloons for them. For me, cheap cupcakes, bought last minute from the grocery store. My birthdays were a joke. No parties, no decorations, no friends allowed, because they are too messy and loud, Lorelei would say with a tight smile. It was easier to pretend my birthday did not matter than to feel the sting of being forgotten. There was no warmth in that house, only rules, only coldness, and the constant, suffocating reminder that no matter how hard I tried, I would never be enough. The only light I had was my dad. He did not have much, but he gave me what he could: an old fishing pole, a second-hand guitar, a quiet kind of love that asked for nothing in return. As I grew older, Briar's cruelty evolved. In school, she made sure everyone knew I was nothing. She and her friends made up stories about me, spread rumors until even the teachers looked at me differently. She made sure that whenever someone looked at me, They saw a punchline, not a person. The worst came during freshman year. It was supposed to be a fresh start. I had worked hard for months, saving money from odd jobs, dreaming about joining the drama club, something I had always been too scared to try. They were holding auditions for the school play, and for once I let myself hope. I practiced in my room every night, memorizing lines, believing that maybe, if I was good enough, someone might finally see me. When the audition day came, Breyer accidentally switched my printed script with one she had altered. Not just crude jokes, but vicious insults about the teachers, grotesque, humiliating monologues filled with disgusting language. I only realized when I stood on stage, in front of the entire drama club, parents in the audience, and read the first few lines aloud. At first, there was stunned silence. Then came the laughter, raucous, ugly, endless. I saw teachers exchange horrified glances. Someone whispered, "Is this a joke?" loud enough for everyone to hear. I froze, my face burning so fiercely it hurt, my mouth dry as sand. When I tried to stammer out that it was a mistake, someone in the crowd threw a crumpled script at my feet. Another voice shouted, "Get off the stage, freak." I ran. I ran out of the auditorium, down the hallway, out into the cold, gasping for air that would not come. I hid behind the dumpster behind the gym, sobbing until my throat was raw. I remember curling into myself behind that dumpster, feeling the icy wind slicing through my thin jacket, wishing I could disappear into the concrete. The humiliation burned hotter than the cold. It scorched through my veins until there was nothing left but a bitter, hollow ache. It was not just sadness, it was fury, a deep, shaking anger at how unfair it all was. How I had dared to believe, just once, that I could have something for myself, and how cruelly that hope had been ripped away. I sat there for what felt like hours, letting the numbness creep in to replace the sharp pain. I replayed every second of that humiliation over and over in my mind, each time feeling like I was being stripped bare all over again. It was not just about the audition, it was about every whispered insult, every stolen moment of happiness, every reminder that I would always be second best in a family that never wanted me to shine. Later, I found Briar sitting on the bleachers, casually scrolling through her phone, a satisfied smile playing on her lips. When she caught me looking, she winked. That was the moment I understood. She would never let me have anything. Not a dream, not dignity, not even a moment. From that day, I stopped reaching for people. I built walls so high that even I could not see over them. It was my dad who refused to let me disappear. He taught me how to fix things with my hands when my heart felt too broken to mend. He showed me that strength was not about how hard you could hit, but about how much you could carry without letting it crush you. Still, I never really believed I would escape. The final straw came that Christmas, the first one after I turned 18. I had made up my mind. I would not sit around their perfect tree, pretending to belong to people who never wanted me. Instead of staying for the family celebration Lorelei had insisted on, I spent Christmas Day with my dad. We grilled burgers in the snow behind his tiny rented house, the smoky scent filling the icy air. We huddled on his worn couch under mismatched blankets, sipping hot cocoa he had made from scratch. We watched old black and white movies on his battered TV, laughing at the cheesy special effects and trading jokes until our sides hurt. The lights on his tiny Christmas tree blinked unevenly, ornaments tilting sideways, but to me it was more beautiful than any tree Lorelei and Griffin could ever put up. For the first time in years, I felt light. I felt seen. I felt loved without having to earn it. When I did not show up to the Maddox house, I started receiving furious texts from Lorelei and even Delilah, demanding to know where I was. They accused me of ruining the holiday, of disrespecting the family. I ignored them. For the first time in my life, I chose peace over obligation. But peace was short-lived. When I finally returned to the Maddox house the next day to pick up some of my things, Lorelei and Griffin were waiting. Lorelei exploded the moment I walked through the door. "How dare you embarrass us like that?" she hissed, her face flushed with rage. "After everything we've done for you," Delilah chimed in, arms crossed, eyes burning. "Do you have any idea how selfish you looked? People were asking where you were. You humiliated this family." Even Griffin, usually the silent one, muttered, "Ungrateful little brat." Briar lingered in the hallway, pretending to look disinterested, but I could feel her eyes on me, cold and calculating. I stood there, letting their anger crash over me like a wave, and for once, I did not flinch. I did not apologize. "You keep saying family, like it actually means something," I said. But there was laughter in that space, a kind of warmth that no amount of money could buy. We ate dinner together every night, even if it was just spaghetti and canned sauce. We watched old reruns on a flickering TV, huddled together under a frayed blanket. On weekends, we fixed up the old truck he was so proud of, our hands covered in grease, our spirits light. He never once made me feel like a burden. Never once made me feel like I had to earn my place there. For the first time in my life, I woke up in a place where I was wanted, where my laughter mattered, where my silence was respected, not punished. It was not perfect. It was better. It was home. Then came the opportunity. I applied to a prestigious university. It felt like a lifeline. I met every requirement, grades, recommendations, community service. All I had to do was write an essay about how my family has shaped who I am. What made it even more personal was that my half-sister, Delilah Maddox, had recently been hired as an adjunct lecturer at that same university. She wore the title like a badge of honor, another glittering addition to the Maddox family's spotless reputation. For the first time, I told the truth. I wrote about birthdays spent alone, sitting at the kitchen table, staring at a single, half-eaten cupcake, while the sound of laughter echoed from upstairs. I wrote about opening presents, wrapped in recycled paper, only to find socks or a used book, while my step-siblings tore through boxes of expensive electronics and jewelry. I wrote about the aching silence that filled the house on holidays, the way my mom's eyes slid past me as if she could not quite bear to see the reminder of the life she left behind. I wrote about how I learned to pretend it did not hurt, how I learned to celebrate quietly so no one would notice the difference. I wrote about the nights I cried into my pillow, convinced that I must be the problem, that something about me made me unworthy of love. But I also wrote about how that loneliness forged a resilience inside me, how learning to expect nothing made me fight harder for every scrap of kindness, every sliver of hope. I wrote about how it taught me to build my own light when none was given, about how growing up feeling invisible made me determined to see others, to listen when no one else would. I wrote about my dad, about how he never let the world harden him, and never let me forget that I was more than the way they treated me, about fishing trips to nowhere, about peanut butter sandwiches eaten on the tailgate of his battered truck, about the way he always found a way to show up, even when he had nothing left to give. I wrote about surviving, about enduring, about how sometimes survival is not just a necessity, but a declaration that I was here, that I mattered, even when the people who should have loved me most tried to erase me. I did not name names. I did not have to. A few months later, my essay was selected to be featured on the university's official admissions blog. The day I got the acceptance email was one of the happiest moments of my life. I stared at the screen in disbelief, tears pooling in my eyes, my hands trembling. After everything, after all the years of being overlooked, erased, forgotten, someone had finally seen me. They had seen my worth, my resilience, my fight to exist when it would have been easier to disappear. I called my dad first. He answered on the first ring, and when I told him, he laughed, a full, joyful sound, before his voice cracked, and he said how proud he was, how he had always known, how he could not wait to see me finally step into the life I deserved. But not everyone was happy. When the essay went public, it was like striking a match in a room soaked in gasoline. People in town started connecting the dots. And the Maddox family, who had spent so long curating their perfect image, was furious. The backlash did not stop at whispers and sideways glances. Within weeks, the university launched a quiet internal review of Delilah Maddox's position. Questions were raised about her personal conduct, the image she projected, and whether it aligned with the values the university wanted to uphold. The administration was concerned about the controversy surrounding her name, and soon after, Delilah was asked to step down. Officially, it was a mutual decision, but everyone knew what had happened. Delilah Maddox, my half-sister, and now a disgraced former lecturer, stormed into our house one afternoon. She was red-faced and shaking, shouting that I had ruined everything, that I was ungrateful, that I had embarrassed the family. Lorelei backed her up, her arms crossed tightly over her chest, her mouth set in a hard, thin line. Griffin paced behind them, his face dark with anger. Briar just stood there, silent, her eyes wide and glassy, looking more like a trapped animal than the queen bee she used to be. "You don't understand what you've done," Delilah screamed. "You made us look like monsters. You cost me my job." I stood my ground. For once, I did not shrink away. I told them, simply and clearly, I wrote the truth. If the truth makes you look like monsters, that is not my fault. There was a long, heavy silence. Lorelei shook her head in disgust. "You've always been a problem," she hissed. "You just found a bigger stage to cry on." It hurt, but it did not break me. Not anymore. Because I had something now that they could not touch. I had freedom. I had proof. Real, undeniable proof that I was not the worthless, invisible thing they tried to make me believe I was. Briar Maddox, the golden girl, the queen bee, the one who had everything handed to her, was exposed. People whispered in the grocery stores. Teachers side-eyed her in the hallways. College scouts reconsidered her application. Her perfect world started to crumble. And then one evening, Briar showed up at my door. She looked small, not the towering figure of my nightmares, but a girl who had just realized the castle she lived in was built on sand. "Please," she said, her voice cracking. "Please take it down." I stood there, silent, letting her squirm. "I'll do anything," she said. "I'll tell everyone we are sisters. I'll tell them you are amazing. Just, just make it stop." Her hands trembled. Tears filled her eyes. "I can't lose everything," she whispered. "You have no idea what it's like." No idea. I almost laughed. I almost screamed. I almost crumbled. Instead, I said nothing. I let her stand there in the silence she had helped build around me. Because the truth is, some things you cannot undo with an apology. Some scars are too deep. I closed the door. Now I sit here, wondering if I did the right thing. My dad says forgiveness is not about forgetting. It's about deciding you are done carrying the pain.
Maybe one day I will forgive her.
But not today. Today, I choose myself. Today, I choose freedom. And that, finally, is enough.